lot of anger and a whole lot of shouting across the aisle. Whole lot of people living in silos, just screaming inside the silo, listening to the sound reverberating from the inside of the silo. And then when it opens, all you hear is noise and more noise and more noise. No production, no communication, no nothing, because people can't be quiet and reset. Sometimes when you are the person who feels targeted, you're the one that's got to reset. You got to consider the source. Sometimes the source is speaking from a place of ignorance because they don't know any better and they ain't ready to learn. Sometimes you got to think about the outcome. This brother talked about not being on the football team anymore because he took a swing on somebody. When I was in law school, I worked as a clerk one summer, and I didn't know at the time they hired me to integrate the law firm because they hadn't had anybody of color there. I thought they hired me because I was so smart, right? And so on top of my game and so articulate. So I was really excited. I was like, hey, I got a job at the firm that nobody else can get a job at, right? So then I find out halfway through the summer when the partners won't speak to me. And they come in and speak to everyone else. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? And hello, how are you? And how are you, right? I thought, dang, wow, okay, they didn't really mean it, because that's what you think the first time, right? Then they come back the next day, oh, how are you, and how are you, oh, and how are you? You go, okay, wait a minute, whoa, now. It can be a mistake the second time. They come back again and invite all the same people to lunch, except you. So I remember halfway through the summer calling home. And home, I told you, is in Montgomery, Alabama, with who? The parents who integrated schools in the state of Alabama, who taught in segregated schools, then they taught in the integrated schools. So I call home. I said, Daddy, I've had it. I'm done with this. He said, what do you mean? I said, these white people won't talk to me. I'm at work every day and ain't nobody talking. They invite everybody to go to lunch but me. He said, well, okay, baby. So when was payday? I said, it was Friday. He said, did you get paid? I said, yeah. Did they pay you what they owed you? I said, yeah, they did. He said, all right, go on back to work. You know, that wasn't the lesson I was looking for. That wasn't the response I was looking for. But what we learn from Esther in the Old Testament is that sometimes you are there for such a time as this. All right? So you got to really think about, what time is it? Yeah, that's a song too, right? You have to think about it. I could have snapped on them like I wanted to. I could have been the angry black woman they wanted me to be. Or I could hang around. Leave it on my resume, make it work for me in another capacity. Figure out that what they're doing in their law firm is oil and gas and property and real estate. Not what we're doing in the smaller black law firms, criminal law, doing a whole lot of child support cases, with people walking in wanting to pay in food stamps. Sometimes you find yourself in a particular kind of spot that's not comfortable. But you are there because you're going to have to teach somebody something that they didn't know. And but for your presence, they may never know it. You will find yourself maybe being the only one, the first, one of few. But you better find that space this brother talking about with some people who can relate. Find a space with somebody who can help coach you through it. Because you are there for such a time as this to affect some change. All right? There it is. Now, this is my lesson from my granddaddy, Granddaddy Cooper. And this is the one I go back to a lot. I used to tell him all the time when people were acting all kind of sorts of fools. I would say, you know what? I don't know what's wrong with them. Because you expect everybody to be like you. You expect everybody to think like you. You expect expect them to have the same energy level as you and to respect people like you do. They don't. They won't. They can't. They ain't. They just not able, some of them, right? My granddaddy turned to me in his wisdom one day and said, baby, everything ain't for you to understand. And I think that's where you're going to have to find yourself. When you're sitting perplexed about someone's racist behaviors and practices and thoughts, you may never understand why they think that. But I can assure you that we will come a lot further as a people, as a country, as a nation, and on a global level when we try to sit down and figure out what they understand. Thanks for your time.
And once again. Okay, so I just want to thank all our speakers tonight. We are now going to have our little Q&A session. We're going to bring up all the speakers tonight, and if you guys have any questions, want to think about those, things you came up with during their speeches, yeah, we'll pass around the mic. Also, just a little bit, you guys can ask questions like this normally, but if by any means you want to get in contact with them, you think of anything tonight or after later in the event, you guys can definitely hit us up on social media, email, or text, and we'll make sure they get your questions and you guys can have a little dialogue there. So yeah, we have all the speakers going.
Before this happens, I low-key forgot this after my performance, but if you guys are really interested, I'm releasing my first ever full-length project. Thank you. Yeah, I'm releasing my first ever full-length project in a week or 2 weeks' time. It's kind of complex, but I won't get into it. But if you are interested in my music, my SoundCloud is Lionel Kit, Lionel, Lionel, Kit, K-I-T-T. It's the same with my social media, whatever is whatever is easier for you to find. And I think it's awesome. I managed to get an award-winning photographer to let me use his photography for free just because he liked it that much. So that should get you hyped. Thank you.
Okay, if you have a question, I have a mic. I'll get to you, but let's start with a student. Oh, he is.
Alright, so I have a question. I know it's kind of like an element in every room right now. What's your guys' current opinion on the whole taking a knee in the NFL, and athletes in general, and yeah, so what's your guys' opinion on that? That's for all that you speak.
Okay. So the protesting in the NFL, I have a lot of thoughts about it actually. So one, I'm gonna plug myself. We have been doing Sit with Cap for over a year now. Thank you. Just showing that solidarity with Colin Kaepernick in that movement. This fight against racial oppression, whether that be police brutality, institutionalized oppression, racism, and just racism in the community. That's what we really got started for on this campus. I think what really affected me, not only was this protest going on and I thought it was genius, it was really what we heard back from Yik Yak when we had that March for Mizzou protest. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but we had a lot of negative feedback on Yik Yak. And negative wouldn't even be the proper term to like capture that. It was a lot of niggers and monkeys and whatever racial stereotype, that bigotry, that anonymous bigotry that you can really get away with. The worst thing you can say, that's what was being said. So I think this Sit with Cap, that was really started to just draw this attention to our community, say like, we're not good here. Like, on the surface, we might be talking about diversity this, diversity that, but like, on the surface, like, we have some real racism here. So I think that's why it got started, and I think it's been doing a great job. But I guess the thing I have against what's going on in the NFL, it was a response to Trump more than a response to racism and racial oppression. And that's what the movement was started for. And I think that was lost. A lot of people that said they would never sit against the flag, it's disrespectful and all of that. They came out and sat or took a knee because of what Trump said. So it really I guess that's what I really have a problem with. We need to understand what this message is and stick to that. I think it's really getting watered down with Trump said this and Trump said that. This is not Trump's America. This is America. This is what it's always been. So it's not that what Trump said is really what was the worst thing that came about it. But I think there was potential in what happened. Because he did come out and say that, there was way more momentum. A lot of people wanted to rally around that, but I think we have to keep that sustained. And unless we do find that message that it is against police brutality and racial oppression, then it's just gonna die again, because Trump's not gonna say something every week, or, I mean, I don't know how, he be tripping, he might. So yeah, I think it's positive because it's keeping us going. It's momentum, it's energy. I don't know if y'all went to Sean King's thing, but he was talking about energy and keeping that alive to really make change. So it's energy, but we have to be able to capture that energy and take it where we really need to go. So, yeah.
That basically sums it up. But my point on it is, for some people who are believing that this is an attack on the flag, no. It's an attack on racial injustice and bigotry that is left in America that has gone unchallenged by the majority. Now, there are people that have seen this and have turned away and act like it didn't happen. Like things with Sandra Bland and all these the choking of Eric Gardner, all these things have led up to him taking a knee. People don't realize, but he sat first. And then he was approached by a Navy SEAL who said, hey, we'd rather you just take a knee. And so he listened to a person that was a part of the military. He said, I'll do that, I'll take a knee. And people still have problems with it. It is a peaceful protest. He came out after he did the first knee, and he had a conversation with media explaining what he was doing, and yet they still change the narrative. They still say it's a disrespect on the national anthem. And also, you guys should look at the national anthem and read the third stanza. I just want to let y'all know that if you guys haven't. It is very racist. But at the end of the day, I met Colin Kaepernick. He played with both of my brothers, one here at UNR and one in the 49ers. And also, I've met Brandon Marshall. I've known him since he was in high school. He played with Colin Kaepernick as well, and they're both good friends. And they both talk about how them taking a knee shows the racial injustices just by hearing people's reactions. So as long as you just support the movement of them taking a knee and necessarily being quiet and just listen to how other people react. Just keep doing that. Keep listening to how other people react, and things will get done. Things will change, I believe. Any more questions?
I have a statement or comment, and I have a question. I don't know how I felt when you said we asked a student first. Was that age discrimination? I am a student of age. But my first experience of ethnic discrimination was in Nigeria. I didn't have a concept of Igbo and Hausa and Yoruba. And my host family were Igbo. They kept saying, you don't understand, you're from America. And I didn't understand. I was just so excited to be in Africa, or in Nigeria. And I was just excited. But you have to be careful stuff. Careful of what? You know, I flew to the capital city, where it consists of primarily houses. I went to the airport, I was looking at books, and I got off the plane. And this Hausa person said something to me in Hausa. I don't speak Hausa, but all I knew was it wasn't nice. I said, what do you say to me? And you heard my American accent, and promptly it changed over the year in Corps. And that was my first experience of ethnic discrimination. We'd be discriminated because they thought I was Igbo, because they thought I was a product or a person from a Civil War I say that, I want to thank the panel for all the input, the young poet of today for introducing James Baldwin to this room, which was a person of the 1930s Harlem Renaissance. And I want you to understand, all you in here, that this is a renaissance that we are a part of. Thank you, veterans from the Civil Rights table, and hearing the discussion from those who walked across the Evan Pitts Bridge on Bloody Sunday. And you had the pleasure to hear their positions and story, you know, and to be on the front line, to be sprayed by water hose, to be called names and billy clubs, but on the front line. And you know, when you understand those gospels, we come this far by faith. You know, welcome young generation to the baton of racism. You're being passed the baton of something that's been here since I've been born, since this young lady, Ms. Thomas, has been born. And it's the uncomfortable discussion. But UNR now is on the front line of change. This is where a lot of things really happen here. So God's trying to tell us something, you know. And so being a veteran of civil rights, you know, I always gain wisdom from the elders because they prepared me for this day. I'm a first generation Californian. I was born in 1956, which is about 91 years after the Civil War, in fact. And when I was about 8 years old, I'd never forget watching interruption of television in California when Bloody Sunday took place because they wanted to vote. They were beat. German shepherds. It was a horrible thing to see. And I'm a child like, why are you beating my family, my community members? And I didn't at the time really understand the voting issue. You know, once upon a time we were colored. My great-grandmother, Bessie Alameda from Louisiana, she told me. And when I was born, it was Negro on my birth certificate. And when my children were born, it was African American on their birth certificate. And the evolution of the word nigger, my nigger. I was in Africa, and I told my host family, I said, you say nigger one more time, Africa, I'm gonna fight you. Because it's so comfortably used now in every community today. But when James Brown said, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, before he said that, if you call someone black, you were fighting. Won't you call me black? It wasn't all that great of a thing. So I've seen a lot of social changes take place. And so I just say that, you know, all of us must prepare ourselves for the Army in the position of change in America. This dialogue is uncomfortable. And these feelings of bigotry, you know, are real. And so thank you for you guys' part.
Oh, nice, don't be shy. Questions? Feel free. We can turn off the camera if you want us to.
Okay, my question's like really simple, but so when the whole Peter thing happened, a lot of like there was a few students like who withdrawed and were like talking like how they didn't want to go here because they're like afraid and all of that stuff. So as far as like students, I would say like I guess of like other races and ethnicities, like how would you say to them like why they still should come to our university because we don't want them to not come here, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we have a student.
Okay. So I did get phone calls from some students, as a graduate student, in fact, who called and let me know that there were some other graduate students who were thinking of not coming to school here because this happened right before school started. So we were trying to assess, or I was, through the 200 emails, trying to figure out there were any real threats in the emails to the campus security. But what I did say to them is I've lived in the state of Alabama, in Tennessee, in Kentucky. I've lived in Florida twice. I've lived in Indiana and Nevada. And I've seen racism in all those places. So my point to them was you cannot decide that Reno is the only place. Like we didn't give birth to all of the people that marched in Charlottesville. Some of them came from some other places around the country and maybe around the world. I don't know where they all came from, but they didn't all come from Reno and from this university. So I'm not really sure where that euphoric place is, where there is no bias, no bigotry, no racism, no hatred. I don't know where that place is. So that was my response, is they can run, but I'm not sure where they're gonna run to that's gonna make them feel, right?
Okay, so mine is kind of like a question to like everyone, but so since everything's been happening, one thing I specifically have noticed is number one, the response to Kaepernick as a student priorly, and the response to Peter as a student presently. I don't know if everyone noticed, Kaepernick used to be like the star student of UNR, like, oh, come over here. Like even in like Reno Airport, his picture was plastered there. And since then, the university has made a conscious decision of taking those pictures down and disassociate themselves from him. On the other hand, we have a response in regards to Peter, where they say we're going to stand by free speech, we don't stand by these morals, but we're going to stand by him expressing himself. And I guess my question is, how do we swallow that pill of knowing that, like, it's not like you said, it's not that in-your-face thing, it's those subconscious things. How do we swallow that pill and also try to provoke change to that? Like from the conclusions you've made, Tristan, what have you seen changes or corrects that?
That's a great question. I don't know if I have an answer for it, but I can definitely shoot my shot and try. So I would say being vocal about things. So for my research, I'm using critical race theory, and one of its central premises is centering students of color's voices. And the purpose of that for me is to know that like we have voices and we can use those, and people are actually going to hear it. Had a chance to present at the student services meeting, and those are the people that need to hear these things. Unless we're expressing those voices, then they're just not going to hear us. I know we did have a lot of like pushback against President Johnson and what he had to say through his emails and kind of him watering it down. But who's going to hold them accountable? That's really what it comes down to. And the only people that can do it is the people. We have the numbers for sure. We have the numbers, but we have to mobilize people. I think unless we are active in some type of civic engagement, whether that be petitioning, sending mass emails, not to Ms. Kim. But I think she can say that. Those things had to be acknowledged at some point. And if we're getting it to the right people, then we can at least start facilitating some type of change. I think that's the best answer I can give you right now. That's why I kind of do Sit for Cap. I don't think that's the main goal of it. Of course, like that's not just going to end racism on this campus, but it's just like that tweet said I saw. It talked about we wear pink to raise awareness for breast cancer. So taking the knee isn't trying to eradicate racism, but it's drawing that awareness. It's getting people talking about these things, and we can having these discussions, we can maybe move into some type of different discourse or different action, and really find out what we need to do. So.
Okay. Take the last two questions.
I can't really see all these things. Okay, so my name is Melody. I was raised, just like a little backstory, I was raised in Citrus Heights, Sacramento. So really love it there, it's super bomb. Anyways, so came to the university, okay, here's an anecdote, okay? So in my CRJ class, making sure no one's in there because I'm about to rip them apart. In my CRJ class, okay, our teacher had us do this exercise where we went outside, and there's about like 45 of us in the class, and she made us all hold hands, and there's about 3 black people in that class. So she made us all hold hands, and she said, she read off like a list of things where you took 2 steps forward or 2 steps back regarding, what it was, okay? So she asked things like if you've ever been like racially profiled, if you grew up in poverty, if you have gone to like a private school or summer camps, like little things that you wouldn't really think of as like a privilege. Anyways, long story short, in the end, every single white male was up in the front, every single one. And I, along with 3 other black women, were in the back. And before the group had started, she had given us numbers to like get into like groups. And so I get in a group and I'm with like 4 other white people and it's 5 of us. So we get over there and this like white girl's like joking around with me and she was like, girl, why were you in the back? And I was like, what the fuck? I was literally like, I was like, all right. And so I was like, wow, I don't really know yet. I don't really want to just open up. So I was like super like uncomfortable. And like another like white male in my group was like, you know, yeah, we're all CRJ majors, and I was like, oh, that's actually not my major, I'm a human development major. And he was like, why are you in this class? I was like, oh, I'm an ethnicity, like, minor. And he was like, why? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, so what my question is, how do you separate emotion from, like, having an adult conversation? Because I wanted to strangle them. Like, these are people that are going to be our police officers, and they're making comments like this to me. And so I don't know how to separate emotion. Like, I was gonna go crazy. So that's my question. So you guys know. Yeah.
First off, separating emotion. So I have had the most problems with separating emotion from these issues.